Evening, ladies and gentlemen. Joe with Jonose Cigars, back with the Cigar Gangster once more for a very long overdue Jonose Convos. We haven't done one since what?
I can't remember.
Was it been July, August of 2018? It's been way too long. And a lot of that has to do with us finding the time to do it. And these kind of take time. You got to plan these. You got to come up with a good topic to talk about. And I think we've got a good topic today.
I think so too. Some misconceptions out there about cigars and cigar smokers.
Yes, both in the general public and within the cigar smoking community in general. There are some misconceptions abound. Some myths and misconceptions is the top 10 list that we are dealing with today. Top 10 misconceptions and myths regarding cigars. So, let's go ahead and start with number 10. This is a myth that I think just occurs generally in the general public, and that is its nicotine properties. A lot of people, and I've heard this a number of times from a lot of really ignorant people, and I mean that in just the simplest way, just they don't know. Not that they're being deliberately ignorant, but that they'll say something like, smoking a cigar, it's like smoking, what, like a pack of cigarettes, right? No and no on so many levels. What's the biggest reason?
Well, one reason is that with a pack of cigarettes, you're inhaling every one of those 20 cigarettes, and it's doing.
At least that's what they're supposed to be done with.
And you're inhaling the smoke, and the nicotine has an effect, both of those things. Whereas with the cigar, of course, you're not inhaling, and you're not smoking, hopefully, a cigar the way you smoke a cigarette. It's a totally different experience.
You're not supposed to.
Yeah.
No, cigars were meant to be enjoyed. Yeah, I mean, nicotine anymore is kind of an afterthought among most cigar enthusiasts. They're smoking a cigar, A, for the relaxation qualities of it. Drawing on a cigar, just puffing on it and blowing the smoke out is a very relaxing activity, kind of like watching a fire burn in a lot of ways, and to enjoy the flavors and the aromas that are delivered from that activity. Also, a lot of social activity is involved with smoking cigars, people hanging out in cigar lounges. I've had so many great conversations with complete strangers at cigar lounges.
And people that you would never maybe come into contact in everyday life.
Yeah.
People all stripes of life.
I mean, you'll have there's a pretty wide gamut of political leanings of people who smoke cigars. I feel like cigar smokers tend to be a little bit more on the conservative side because liberal-minded people don't tend to go for nicotine or tobacco products in general. But I am amazed by how many left-leaning people actually end up showing up in cigar lounges, and the conversations that people on the left and right can have while enjoying the common love of cigar smoking.
Yeah, and I think the thing is that no matter what your leanings are or your views, you have a certain reasonability about you.
Yes.
And you see that this person that you're having the conversation with is an actual human and normal person. Mm-hmm. You have similar interests and common ground, and therefore, where you differ, you're more likely to say agree to disagree or try to understand their point instead of just reactionarily saying, no, you're crazy.
And unlike alcohol, it doesn't tend to exacerbate emotion. It does kind of the opposite. It kind of mellows you out in a way where you're not too harassable.
Without losing the reason.
Right. So the whole nicotine myth, cigarettes are meant to inhale to get a very quick shot of nicotine into your blood system. As soon as your lungs get exposed to the cigar smoke and the numerous other chemicals that come with cigarettes, you get an immediate rush, a head rush from the nicotine. Whereas cigars, you may not actually get a nicotine at all, and if anything, it's usually towards the end of the cigar when it's just been that much smoke around you for that long. And again, I'm going to stress, it's kind of an afterthought. It's not what cigar smokers are really going.
It's not the point. Now, of course, like anything, whether you're having a drink for the first time you have it, of course, it's going to have more of an effect than the second, third, etc. Same thing with cigar, of course. The first time you have it, I would err on the side of a less nicotine,
milder cigar would be a good thing to go with.
But as you build up a tolerance, it almost, I mean, to me, it's almost an afterthought in the sense that I don't even notice it at all anymore.
Yes, and honestly, like anything, like finer things in life, fine wines, fine spirits, all those sort of things, you wouldn't go with the premium stuff right away because it would be too much for your senses. It would overwhelm you, and you wouldn't appreciate everything that it has to offer.
You have to build up a palate.
Right.
And that flows into another point. I don't know what it is, but maybe it can become number 9, which is that you can't judge a cigar by its appearance.
Yeah, we'll be touching on that much later, but yeah. So let's debunk that myth right now. Nicotine is not even on the radar for people when it comes to picking out a cigar. If anything, is this going to be too much of a nicotine hit because I might want to avoid it.
Right.
All right, moving on to number 2. This is kind of a funny one. A lot of times people only see people smoking cigars because of their limited life experience to the douchebags at a wedding, lighting up a cigar and acting like a complete asshole because they're already hammered as it is, and now they light up a cigar and they make them even more douchey.
Certainly you can be a douchebag and smoke cigars, but
Yes.
it's not related. You're independently a douchebag.
Yes.
And you just happen to be smoking a cigar.
It does give us cigar smokers a bad rap
It does.
when, you know, every Kyle, Chad, and
Nothing wrong with those names.
and Brandon are like, hey Kyle, hey, let's light up a cigar, man. Yeah, you know, I'm totally wasted. It doesn't even matter.
Nothing wrong with the name Kyle, of course. But, yeah, it's just...
Sorry,
it's one
Kyle.
of those, when you view a cigar as some sort of an add-on to a party,
Yeah.
or some sort of an add-on to your buzz, that's always a problem.
And it always annoys me. I work in the food industry, and I was recently catering a wedding where they had a mobile cigar lounge. They had a trailer. They're popping up all over the place, and it's the coolest concept. You know, they have a mobile cigar trailer that has a fully stocked humidor with everything, all the accoutrements you would want. You've got lounge chairs and TV set up in the trailer and everything, and it's really a neat thing. And it was at a wedding that I was doing, and all these guys were buying, you know, these $10 and $12 cigars, lighting them up, and I kid you not, after about a quarter of it, stomping it out on the sidewalk.
This is one of my pet peeves. I have some friends, some people that I love, even, you know, that will come into my humidor, take a fine cigar, a cigar that's meant to be savored, and they'll smoke it like a dart, and then they'll put it out when it's halfway done, and it's like you're
never want to see someone do this. Like, oh, that was good.
Yeah, you're not putting. You let the cigar tell you when it's done. You don't just throw it away like trash. I mean, yeah, it's a big misconception.
It's about the equivalent of pouring someone 2 fingers of Lagavulin and them taking like 2 sips and then like tossing it out.
like
Well,
it's
I'm done
water.
with that.
Exactly. It's the same thing. You
Unbelievable.
need to show a certain amount of respect to the cigar, and the people that come across as douchebags are not doing that. They're using it as like a party favor, you know, to end their night out, and that's not what it's for. No, don't do that.
Please.
Okay, so number 3 is a good one, and it's one that actually was in my prejudices. I come from a small town, and to me, you know, growing up, cigar was for the rich. Cigar was for people who are well-to-do. Cigar was for big businessmen,
Oil tycoons and the like.
people who, you know, had to show off their wealth through smoking, whereas the cigarette was for the common man. And I just think that's the absolute wrong way to look at it.
Hollywood hasn't done much to
haven't.
dispel that stereotype either.
Where the stereotype comes from something true, which is that this is compared to a cigarette, a Doral, it's a refined way to enjoy tobacco. That's a good thing though, and it shouldn't be limited to rich people. Just like good bourbon or good whiskey, good scotch shouldn't be limited to the rich. Anyone can afford a cigar of good quality.
Yes.
You don't have to buy a $20 Padron to have a good cigar. But whatever your means are, you can try to get something that is worthy of being savored, and that's what it's about.
There are plenty of exceptionally good cigars that you can get readily available for under $10, oftentimes under $5 or $6. Now those are fewer and far between, and you really got to search to find those sub $5 cigars that are really good, but there are plenty under $10 that you can find, enjoy, and really get a lot out of. And keep in mind, a lot of cigar smokers aren't the type of people that are going to light up a cigar every day. So there's another misconception that kind of ties into this that we'll be getting onto next, that it is an expensive hobby, like cigarettes. I mean, a cigarette smoker, you know, smokes a pack a day. Boy, that adds up quick.
Yes, I know from personal experience in my family that cigarette smoking is much more expensive than cigar smoking because you're doing it all the time,
Yeah.
and constantly. And it's much better to take your $10 and instead of smoking 2 packs of cigarettes that you would dispense of in a day and a half, you're going to buy 1 fine cigar and enjoy it during that week. It's a much better use, and it's the flip side of the douchebag thing, which is it's not an accessory to make you cool and rich, and it's also not something that's reserved for the cool and rich.
Although I cannot stress enough how badass you are when you do smoke a cigar.
Right, that's not a bad thing though. Right, exactly. But you know, it's not something that's reserved for the upper echelons of society. It's ridiculous.
And there's plenty of guys. I smoke normally about 3 to 5 cigars a week, and most of the cigars I can get them for $7 or less. So all that said and done, I spend maybe $21 to $35 a week on something that I really, really enjoy. If you drink any sort of bourbon, or any other spirit regularly, you're going to spend easily that, and maybe even more than that. So compared to cigarettes and even other fine alcohols, cigars, they're really not that expensive.
No.
This is one that kind of ties into number one and the previous one, is that cigars are addictive. Maybe they are a little bit, but I think a lot of people say they're like cigarettes in their addictive qualities, or even alcohol in their addictive qualities. I beg to differ.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're talking about things that, you know, even alcohol, it can be addictive for some people, sure, of course, but really, the lesson here is moderation, and addictive in the sense of it's something good that makes you, improves your quality of life when done properly.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, it's addictive in the same way that a good meal is addictive.
Right.
Without
Or
becoming obese.
Hanging out with quality friends.
Yes, which I have, you know.
A few of those.
So yeah, no, it's not addictive. It's what you make of it, and if you
it's actually enjoyable.
It's very enjoyable. It improves your quality of life, and if you exercise the discipline that you should exercise in every aspect of your life, it's not addictive. It adds to your quality of life, not detracts from it.
I was watching a video on YouTube. I think it's on a channel called Twin Tobacco. Pretty good channel. Check them out if you had a chance. And they made the point of they've been smoking cigars for years now, and once in their life there's something happened circumstantially where they weren't able to smoke cigars for like a month. And the point they made was, while it kind of sucked, they didn't have any withdrawal symptoms.
Exactly.
Like if I could probably say I'm addicted to coffee, because if I go a morning without coffee, I get a headache. I'm not sharp and focused, and that's probably a bad thing. I should probably wean myself off of coffee because of that. I will smoke 3 to 5 cigars in a week, and then there's certain weeks where I don't smoke cigars for like 21 days
That's
sometimes.
Exactly right.
And I'll never have any withdrawal problems.
Yeah, you're not going to have a drug type of withdrawal when
Right.
you quit cigars. You're just going to be like, man, I want a cigar.
I would like a
That was
cigar.
really great. But yeah, caffeine's much more addictive. Yeah. And again, caffeine can be enjoyed in moderation and improve your quality of life. It's all about how you use it. But compared to caffeine, or certainly, you know, cigarettes and alcohol, where you're using it as a crutch, it's not addictive. Next up on our list of myths, right in the middle, is it's addictive as cigarettes. I get this from people in my family.
It's dangerous as cigarettes.
Excuse me, it's dangerous as cigarettes. We already went over addictiveness, but it's similar to the addictiveness in the sense that because you're not addicted to it and you don't go through withdrawal symptoms when you are not using it, it's in a totally different category. And also, the lack of inhaling, okay?
Cannot stress this enough.
I'm not going to say that if you're... It's just like anything. I like diet soda. Joe gets on me all the time. It's terrible for you. It has chemicals in it. Who knows? I mean, maybe it'll give me cancer. I have no idea. Compared to, say, that, it's all about the amount, the time and place, etc. And you're not inhaling the smoke. So as far as lung cancer goes, things like that, it's not even in the same ballpark as cigarettes. But if you're like Ulysses S. Grant,
you smoke 20 cigars a day.
You smoke 20 a day and you're constantly having it in your mouth, constantly having it. Of course, yeah, I'm sure that there are some negative health effects in that sense. But if you're using it as you should, again, I think it's a boost to your quality of life.
That poor man did die of throat cancer
He did.
in a fairly early age, unfortunately.
If you can keep it under 20 a day,
you have a bit of good chance
you have a
of
better
avoiding
chance than
throat
old
cancer.
Grant. Yeah.
Another thing I'm going to bring up is, do you know what goes into a cigar? There's 2 things. Tobacco and a trace amount of glucose-based glue to hold the leaves together. And those are based on potato starch or glucose that comes from fruits or plants. So completely organic substance. Cigarettes,
Not as well.
there are hundreds, if not thousands of chemicals put in tobacco that goes into cigarettes. And yes, you are inhaling that into your blood system and your lungs.
The tar.
Yeah, the tar. All of that is going into your body when you light up a cigarette, not going into your body when you light up a cigar. And I'm going to put a link to the FDA report that came out, I think, in 2016, was it?
It was very recent, yeah.
That they put out that said that cigar smokers that smoke up to 1 to 2 a day
Can't find anything.
have a minuscule increased risk of a few cancers.
Right.
Whereas with cigarette smokers, it's up a lot more significant.
I would compare it to like having a steak, you know. If you have a steak in moderation, it's not a problem. If you're eating like red meat every day, maybe there's some increase, whatever, but
Your
again,
cholesterol is going to have a problem.
potential. But, you know, again, it's all about moderation and time and place, and if you're doing it in moderation, it's negligible or zero.
All right, moving on to number 6, and this is kind of pertinent to today's issue with the FDA trying to regulate premium cigars. What a stupid idea that is. and that ties into the previous one, is that it poses a risk to the youth. If anything,
this is really stupid.
This is really dumb. If anything poses a risk to the youth, it's going to be vaping and cigarettes, as it always has, because they are readily available. They can get them at any corner store, any 7-Eleven in the worst parts of town. You can't get a premium cigar unless you go to a cigar shop that tends to be in, let's just say, a little bit nicer areas, where you're not going to have the guy just say, oh sure, you're 16, I'll sell you a cigar. Even if that were the case, people who are 16 and 17 years old are not going to be willing to put up $8 or $9 to smoke one cigar.
And if first of all, kids aren't thinking about cigars and thinking about smoking at all, of course, but if they are, they're thinking about basically cigars, like the kind you get at the gas station.
Your Black and Milds, your Swisher Sweets.
Yeah, it's only a cigar in name. It's basically a cigarette, really, and that's how they use it. That's the danger.
So the latter half of this list is going to be misconceptions that exist kind of in the cigar circles and not necessarily to the general public.
Yeah.
And number 7 is inhaling cigars improves the flavor perception that you can get from a cigar.
No, inhaling a cigar may improve your buzz, and it may knock you out cold. It may improve your chances of getting cancer, but it doesn't improve the flavor.
It will also improve your chances of throwing up on the spot.
Exactly, yeah. And if anything, that one blast of flavor you get when you inhale ends any flavor tasting from then on. If you want to get a heightened flavor without inhaling, you do the retrohale.
Right.
Which is a nice way to kind of make the flavors come alive without actually going into
get those olfactory senses involved.
And I had a bit of it, at first you might not know how to retrohale. There's you can Google how to do it, but basically you're taking it through the nose and coming out the nose without going into the lungs. That's the key. Because if it goes into the lungs, you're in trouble, and your palate's ruined for the rest of the smoke.
I've said it a number of times, you got to start retrohaling even if it's kind of harsh the first few times you do it, because you're missing out on so many flavor elements that are present in every cigar that you will not get if you do not retrohale. And I know it's going to be a little rough when you first start, but it will get better, your body will acclimate, and it won't be nearly as bad the more you do it. Alright, number 8 is that there's kind of this weird mindset. It's like, no, don't ever dip your cigar in a bourbon. Oh, that's terrible. I'm going to do it right now just to tell you how stupid that idea is.
There's a flip side to this too, which is that you should always be dipping it in something. It's the same wrong mindset, which is like there's this perfect way to enjoy your cigar. That's not accurate. Some cigars, you dip it in a bourbon and it improves the flavor greatly. It changes the flavor, it adds to the flavor, it goes with it. Sometimes it can ruin it. Just do what makes you happy. It's fine. You're not hurting anybody.
If you like doing it, it's fine. It's fine. There's a lot of people who say, don't ever tap the cigar. You should always roll. And I agree, you probably should roll, but I'm never going to be like, hey, what are you doing tapping your cigar? What a moron. Don't be a purist.
That's how you become a cigar douche.
Yeah.
Yeah. It goes great with bourbon. You want to dip it in there? Feel free. It doesn't matter.
And it will change the experience. For good or for better. For good or for worse. For better or for worse.
For good or for better or for best.
It will change the experience. Don't get me wrong. It will change the way the cigar tastes and sometimes the way it performs. But if you like doing it, don't ever stop. I would definitely encourage experimenting, doing it with.
Try the same cigar without. Yeah. Whatever adds to your enjoyment. That's what's important.
I know a lot of guys will take kind of subpar cigars and then just put them in the humidor with like a little glass of like bourbon or scotch to try to infuse them with a little bit of flavor. It actually kind of helps.
That's a very good point. You got a $2 smoke or whatever, you want to make it taste like a $5 smoke, dip it in a little whiskey.
Yeah. Alright, so number 9. This is one that you've brought up to me, and I think it's a very, very important one to put out, and that is judging a cigar by its appearance.
And the reason that I brought it up is that it's one that I kind of fell victim to. There are certain generalities. You find a darker cigar, it's gonna, a Maduro, it's gonna usually be more potent, more sweet, a little more of a flavor bomb. And you find it, like a Connecticut wrapper, very light one, it's gonna be less. That's true, I guess, more than 50%
Sometimes,
of the time.
yeah.
But it's not true near 100% of the time. And I've had many light cigars that pack a wallop and many dark cigars that are very mild.
Yeah, and I actually found that I was trying to get up early in my cigar smoking days. I went into a lounge and I was like, oh, this is a nice light cigar. I want something kind of mild out. It's earlier in the day. It's only about noon. I'm going to get that one. And it was like, oh my God, knock me on my ass. It was, I can't remember what it was. Suffice to say, it was a full-bodied stick, and I was not ready for it.
And far more important is the stats of where's the wrapper from, what kind of a wrapper is it? That's what's the binder, what's the filler. That's more important than the appearance. It's similar to liquor, you know, like you could have. What is this? This is water. Okay, it looks like water. It is water. But I could have a bottle of vodka next to it, or a bottle of gin and a bottle of tequila. They could all be white and have vastly different flavors. It's the exact same principle.
Funny anecdote. One of our mutual friends, I had a glass of Ardbeg, which is kind of a cheaper man's version of Lagavulin, and it's a peaty Scotch, but it's very, very light in color. It's very light. And he looked at us like, well, that is the palest looking Scotch I've ever seen in my life. And he's like, oh, have you ever had it? And he goes, no, I never had. And he's like, whoa, that is way more intense than I thought it was going to be. You can't judge the way things are going to taste by the way it looks. And I was really surprised because I kind of stayed away from the Maduro and Oscuro wrap cigars for a long time because I thought, oh, they're going to be too potent for me. Complete opposite. So many Maduro wrap cigars, nice, sweet, completely not necessarily mellow, but not full. Very medium, pleasant tasting cigars.
Exactly.
All right, and that brings us to number 10. And this is one I've kind of knocked on a little bit in previous videos, and that is thinking that Cubans are still, by default, the best cigars in the world today. That might have been true like 50 years ago.
And it might not have been. I wasn't around.
Yeah. But I gotta tell you, cigar industry in general in Cuba is starting to fall apart.
Yeah.
There have been so many cigar labels out there, I'm not going to name names right now because that's not what I'm in the business of doing, that have just really fallen off track when it comes to delivering quality cigars. And I've been reading a few articles about this. Apparently they're taking a lot of shortcuts in Cuba when it comes to replenishing the soil that they grow the cigars leaves in. They're taking shortcuts in how long they age and ferment the cigars, and so the flavors just aren't going to be there, and even after aging, they're not going to be there.
Yeah, and like any good, myth or misconception, there's a grain of truth, which was this was the highest quality cigar you could get for a long time. But it's not necessarily true anymore. So again, let your palate decide rather than just your prejudice about, oh, this is a Cuban cigar. It just doesn't hold anymore.
And there are so many Cuban expatriates, including Jose Orlando Padron, what's his name, Gilberto Oliva, who started Oliva, Arturo Fuente, I think, was an expatriate from Cuba, AJ Fernandez. All these guys come with just a plethora of knowledge from their home country and have expanded it to other regions like the Dominican Republic and Nicaragua. And those countries have started to really catch up as far as delivering excellent quality cigars and tobacco leaves.
It's kind of similar to, like, French chefs are like the highest chefs, well as French food, blah, blah, blah. It's more about the knowledge that they had in their practices, and now that has been exported with the information overload we all have today, that you don't have to have the soil of Cuba to produce a cigar that's the quality of a Cuban cigar 50 years ago.
Right, and while I will say that the flavor profiles from these other regions will be different, they're going to be worse, and a lot of times, especially today, a lot better.
I've had, I haven't had that many Cuban cigars in my life, but yeah, I think the first thing, yeah, you're all right. The first thing that I can remember, the first one I had was like mild disappointment because I was just expecting this nirvana of tobacco flavor. Well, like, okay, now it's just not like that anymore. So I'm sure there are still fine Cuban cigars. It's not about that. It's just about don't judge a book by its cover.
They are no longer the gold standard, is the point.
Judge it as a cigar.
There are just so many excellent quality cigars from so many other regions that are just knock your socks off sticks.
Exactly.
Well, thanks so much, everybody, for joining us in the latest Jonose Convos, another top 10 list in the books.
It's over. We did it.
So, if you're thinking about getting into cigars, take what we said to heart, because this is very helpful in your exploration of the cigar lifestyle.
And avoid these pitfalls. It's very important.
Until next time, everybody, smoke a good one.